Hello, welcome to another episode of In the Trenches with Gang Green. I'm your host, Bubbs. Today we have another episode of the New York Jets player preview series. Today we are going to take a look at two more New York Jets, one on offense and the other coming on defense. This is episode 15 of the New York Jets 2024 player previews. Couple more episodes left, but we've got a lot of great talent to discuss over the next couple episodes here on a Friday edition. And then, of course, a couple more episodes next week as well, as we officially put the close to 2024 New York Jets player previews very soon here. Now, before we begin, let me quickly tell you about our podcast partners, starting with our newest partner, our friends over at BetUS, America's favorite online sportsbook. And there is no better way to get in on the betting action this NFL season than with BetUS. And use my link, which can be found in the description of this video and in the comments. When you use my link, you get a 125% sign-up bonus on your first 3 deposits up to $2,000. And BetUS, really excited to team up with them this football season. Link, again, can be found both in the description and for those of you on YouTube, also in the YouTube comments of this video. Also, of course, SeatGeek. SeatGeek is an app that delivers tickets from all over the internet and makes it easier for you, the buyer, with their rating on each ticket. From a scale to 1 to 10, you know where to find the good deals. You know where the good deals are by looking on the chart and the green dots. Green means good. Those are the good deals. Those are the tickets you want to purchase. Plus, my viewers, use promo code BubsOnSports for $20 off your first purchase. And also, of course, our friends over at Huga House. You see me wearing my Huga House hat all the time on the podcast. If you want the hat I wear all the time, or any of the hats Aaron Rodgers wears, use promo code BUBS for 15% off. All right, now into today's player preview episode number 15 of the New York Jets player previews. We will take a look at running back Breece Hall and linebacker Quincy Williams in today's episode. Now let's get into it. Before we get to Quincy Williams, let's start on the offensive side of the football and start the episode here with star running back Breece Hall. 6'1", 220 pounds, 23 years old, 2022 second-round pick, 36th overall out of Iowa State. He enters his third year with the Jets and his third year in the NFL. And, of course, Breece Hall, we talked about Jermaine Johnson in the last episode. Breece Hall, also a part of that historic and special 2022 draft class, which saw 4 straight picks of Sauce Gardner, Garrett Wilson, Jermaine Johnson, and Breece Hall, who have completely changed the trajectory there of this franchise on both sides of the football, of course, with Sauce and Jermaine on defense, and Breece and Garrett coming on the offensive side of the football. I mean, Breece Hall is one of the most talked about, has to be one of the most talked about and exciting players going into the 2024 campaign. What this guy can do this year, the sky is the limit for Breece Hall. I mean, I don't even know if that's the right way to put it. There might be no limit for Breece Hall this season. That's how much the expectation is that this guy is going to go out and absolutely dominate with what he's already shown us in his first 2 years of his career, with a lot of things unfortunately kind of happening around him that haven't been in his favor, but he's still gone out and produced and put up big time numbers. You know, you go back to his rookie year. This was a guy that was playing excellent football. The game he got hurt, had the big 60-plus yard touchdown against the Denver Broncos. Unfortunately goes down with the torn ACL. Was well on his way to winning Offensive Rookie of the Year. Well on his way to over 1,000 yards. And one of the better running back seasons we've ever seen from a New York Jet running back. And one of the better running back seasons we've seen from a rookie running back. Ends up going down with the torn ACL. Comes back last year. And it doesn't even look like he was hurt. You know, goes out there in week 1 against the Buffalo Bills, has the huge 83-yard run, which stood as his longest of the year, put up 127 yards, and he consistently put up solid production last year behind one of the worst offensive lines and fell just 6 yards short of 1,000 yards. So this was a guy that has so much still that we haven't seen out of him in terms of a production standpoint because of the torn ACL in 2022 cutting his season short. And this was a guy last year that, despite everything going on around him, still went out, put up 994 rushing yards, still went out and produced in a big way. And that was with 13 different offensive line combinations, no quarterback. So defenses were stacking the box, expecting the run against Breece Hall, and still put together a good season. And oh yeah, he also had an offensive coordinator that didn't realize until that Giants game coming out of the bye week. So week 8, didn't realize that he was much of a threat, that he was a weapon that they could use in the passing game. So there's more layers. No offensive line, no quarterback, defenses stacking the box, knowing the run's coming, and an incompetent offensive coordinator that didn't really know how to use him, didn't use him in the passing game up until week number 8. So all of those things going on, and Breece Hall still found ways to produce in a big way. And now you go into 2024, and the expectation and the excitement level is through the roof with this guy. I mean, you watch him. He gets to the second level so easy. It looks like he's not even trying when he's running. That's how much speed he brings. That's just, the vision, his open field ability to make guys miss. I mean, he's just he's got so much talent. He's such a natural runner and a guy that is going to blow up this year in so many ways from a touches standpoint. I mean, he's going to get the ball a ton. From a yards statistical standpoint, should have numbers that are near the top of the NFL in almost every single category from a running back and even overall perspective from some of the total yard stuff that he should put up this season, because he's got a quarterback. He's actually got an offensive line now, unlike what he was trying to run behind last year. So Breece Hall, I mean, so exciting to see what this guy can do this year. And it's crazy because he's played 24 games, and you feel like I think this is what makes you as a Jet fan so excited. Is like, you look at his 24 games, right? And he missed 10 games his rookie year. Very, very impressive numbers, but he hasn't even really sniffed in a way what he can maybe even do in terms of a statistical standpoint as well. I mean, he hasn't even hit 1,000 yards yet. Last year he fell 6 yards short. So it's crazy for what this guy might be able to do and should be able to do this season. Again, when you look at some of the numbers last year, his 2024 rushing numbers, 223 carries, 994 yards, 4.5 yards per carry, 5 touchdowns. When you look at some of his receiving numbers, 76 receptions, 95 targets, 591 yards, 7.8 yards per reception, and 4 touchdowns. So in total last season, Breece Hall had 299 total touches, 1,585 total yards, and 9 touchdowns. To put in perspective some of his statistics, well, he was top 15 in carries and yards. He was first among all running backs in receptions with 76. He was first among all running backs in receiving yards with 591. And he was second among all running backs in total yards, 1,585 all-purpose yards, only behind Christian McCaffrey of the San Francisco 49ers. And I'll say it again. No offensive line, no quarterback, no coordinator. So many dysfunctional pieces around him last year, and he was first in receptions, first in yards, second in all-purpose yards, all of those among running backs. Just imagine what this guy can do with a competent offense, with a Hall of Famer at quarterback. Some of his other numbers that I just think are very, very impressive. Leads the NFL in running backs in 50-plus yard plays since 2022. He has 6 of those. And what's crazy about that is he's missed 10 games during that time, and he's 28th in touches. So this isn't like this is a guy that is has played every single game since he's entered the league, getting all these touches, all these carries, and he's still sixth. He still leads the NFL rather during that time since 2022 in 50-plus yard plays with 6. So that's very, very impressive. And I think, too, just from a statistical standpoint, what this guy might be able to do this year is just crazy. I mean, you look at what CMC did last year, right? I think that's got to be probably sort of where Breece Hall might be this year, right? I think there's a really good chance Breece Hall could probably go out there and put up 1,900, over 2,000 all-purpose yards. When you look at, let's say he goes out there and he has all the tools and all the talent in the world to go out there and put up 1,300, 1,400 yards on the ground. And then when you look at it from a receiving yards perspective, I mean, he had 591 receiving yards last year, which led all running backs, even more than Christian McCaffrey. And that was, again, on an offense that didn't know he was much of a receiving threat until week number 8 was when they really started to get him involved as a receiver out of the backfield in the passing game. So I think you could sit here and maybe say that this guy Breece might even have potential to hit 600 plus 700 receiving yards, and then maybe somewhere around the 1,300, 1,400 yard mark, which would get him well over 2,000 all-purpose yards. I mean, I don't think it's crazy. This guy, the numbers that Breece is going to put up, if he's healthy and everything else with the Jets offense is going as planned this year. Rodgers is healthy. The offensive line stays healthy up front. If all of that goes well, there should be no reason Breece Hall should not be at the front runner for Offensive Player of the Year, and maybe in the conversation potentially for MVP. That's how good this guy can be. I don't think it'll happen, but from a standpoint of what he might be able to do this year in production, it's going to be through the roof. It's going to be crazy. It really is. You also look at how he fits with Rodgers. We talk about the receiving game. He's going to be even better receiver this year with Rodgers, because when you look at what Rodgers was able to do with Aaron Jones finished second on Green Bay in targets in each year from 2019 to 2022. Breece is going to lead the way for the Jets on offense, really, when it comes down to touching the ball. He's going to probably touch the ball the most out of any other skill player. He is. He's your workhorse, bell cow, every down guy, running, receiving, whatever you need him to do, he's going to be able to go out there and do it. And we don't talk a ton about fantasy on the show because that's not really what it's about. But I figured I might as well bring up a fantasy point too here about Breece Hall. Highest ranked Jets fantasy player. He's 5th overall in average draft position, and they rank him 2nd among running backs in ADP, average draft position. So if you haven't drafted yet in fantasy, Breece Hall is probably easily a top 3, top 5 pick, no doubt, and might fall. Definitely, I could see him definitely falling in drafts because it feels like guys that play for the Jets tend not to get drafted always in fantasy because of the whole same old Jets mantra, and people just don't avoid Jets a lot. So if you get Breece late in the first round, definitely take him. He should no doubt be the number 2, maybe even number 1 running back off this board. If you're basing off of just potential, there's a chance he puts up even bigger numbers than CMC this year, because in some areas he actually beat CMC last year with all things considered that was happening around him. So Breece Hall, I think if you're a Jet fan, he's probably the player that you're expecting. I don't know if I want to say expecting the most out of, because of course we'll get into the Garrett Wilson player preview next week. And of course, Rodgers, we're expecting big things out of him in terms of, quarterback. We'll get more into that. But from a statistical standpoint, Breece Hall in terms of statistically, probably will just dominate when it comes to like a Jets perspective, where he will probably be the most impressive player this year, not only on the field, but when you look at the stats at the end of it all. Just probably the guy that I think is probably getting the most hype, and a guy that probably might be able to put up the biggest numbers out of anybody on this team, if we're being honest here. So that's Breece Hall, running back, looking for another big year 3. All right, now I move on here to Quincy Williams, linebacker, 5'11", 230 pounds, 27 years old. Will be 28 here in just a couple of days. He turns 28 on August 28th. So will be 28 before the season. Enters his age 28 season. Was a 2019 third-round pick, 98th overall by the Jacksonville Jaguars out of Murray State. Has spent 5 years in the NFL. This is his sixth. 2 with the Jacksonville Jaguars, 3 with the New York Jets. This will be his 4th with the New York Jets as he enters his second year of a 3-year, $18 million deal that he signed last offseason before the season began, which, by the way, tons of credit goes to Joe Douglas. Great contract by him to get him to sign early. And now we can officially say, for the first time ever in a Quincy Williams player preview, he is a first-team All-Pro and a team MVP. Both of those accolades he took home last year. Both of those were well-deserved. The Quincy and Quinnen, the Williams brother duo, has been dominant for this Jets defense. We'll get into Quinnen here in a couple days. But Quincy Williams has just been an awesome story. He's been such an awesome find for the New York Jets. And look, there's obviously been a lot of criticism towards everybody in this Jets organization, right? From a coaching staff to a general manager's perspective. There's, of course, been a lot of criticism. Saleh, whatever you want to criticize, there's a lot. But Quincy Williams, and there's been a couple other players as well, is one guy where you have to give an immense amount of credit to the New York Jets, coaching perspective and a front office perspective, on not only bringing him in, but also, of course, giving him that contract last year, getting on it early before you ran into a contract problem like they just ran into with Bryce Huff or one of these other guys. But this was a guy that got cut by the Jacksonville Jaguars in 2021. The New York Jets picked him up, rolled him out there for 16 games in 2021. There was definitely some growing pains, but by far was his best season, no doubt, in his NFL career. Goes out there in 2022, puts up an even bigger season, even better season. Very, very impressive. Tackling got better. Sideline to sideline speed was still there. Jets rewarded him with a contract extension right before he hit his peak. And then you go out there last year, and now you really see he's right in the middle of his prime. And this was a gem. Massive year last season. First year of a contract. First team All-Pro. Curtis Martin team MVP. You've got to give a ton of credit, right? We've knocked Joe Douglas at times, specifically offensively, for not always finding the best talent, whether it be late in drafts or even waiver wire, things like that. But one thing Douglas has been able to do is find some gems on defense. And Quincy Williams was a gem. This was a guy that got cut by the Jacksonville Jaguars. Not a huge dominant team, dominant franchise by any means. Just 2 years after being selected in the third round. And he's come to the Jets and he's completely turned his career around. And he's gotten better in each of his 3 seasons. Like I said, 2021, you saw a lot of good things from a kind of talent potential. Like you saw a lot of things where he could, like, you could see him working out here. You could see he legitimately had a future. He could really be a nice piece. But he missed a lot of tackles. He didn't take great routes at times. At times a little suspect in coverage. He still had a lot of work on, but very good sideline to sideline speed and could deliver big hits, could make big plays, get to the quarterback a little bit, all that good stuff. And then you go into 2022. His open field tackling, his tackling as a whole got significantly better, in my opinion. Coverage got better. And then you go into last year, and that's where that huge jump came. And he's turned into one of the elite linebackers. One half of what we all, and I believe, is the best linebacker room in the NFL. And we talked about CJ Mosley 2 episodes ago. Or, yes, 2 episodes ago now. On episode 13, Monday, we talked about Mosley along with Mike Williams. But Quincy Williams was actually even better last year at times in some areas than CJ Mosley. Not even at times. He was. He is an anchor for this defense, one of the best players on this defense. And, of course, that led to that first team All-Pro. You look at his numbers, right? 2023 last season at 139 total tackles, 95 solo tackles, 2 sacks, 1 interceptions, 10 passes defended, 19 stuffs, 15 tackles for loss, 2 forced fumbles, and 4 quarterback hits. When you look at his rankings from a league-wide perspective, he finished 13th in total tackles, but finished 5th in solo tackles. So top 15 and then top 5 in those categories. And when you looked at some of his rankings from a team perspective, was second on the team in total tackles, first in solo tackles, first in tackles for loss, tied for first in forced fumbles, second in passes defended, and was first among all linebackers in passes defended. And that's one area that I think you've got to love out of Quincy Williams, was his coverage ability last year. This guy did not shy away from some big spots in big games where he had to step up in coverage against some good tight ends and even, some other, players, some receivers that he had to pick up, but mainly tight ends. This guy did not shy away. And I think that was one of the biggest areas, right? We talked about the sideline to sideline speed always being there. We talked about the tackling getting better, which really started to get better 2022. And now it's just phenomenal. Of course, the 95 solo tackles, 5th in the NFL, and the missed tackle rate, much better routes. All those have dropped. I think that has been a strength of his, but from a coverage perspective, right? We've kind of talked about the last couple of years, the one knock on this Jets defense at times, even with CJ Mosley a little bit, not always the best in coverage. Safeties not always being the best in coverage. That's not the case with Quincy Williams. One of the strengths actually to Quincy Williams' game in a way has been his coverage. Not only, do you look at it and see the 10 passes defended last year, which was second on the team and first among linebackers, but you also look at it, 2023 PFF coverage grade. He graded out 88.7 in coverage, which was one of the better grades given to a linebacker in coverage last year. And that's such a huge, huge piece to have in this defense, especially when some of the other guys, some of the other linebackers, some of the safeties at times have struggled. That's something that Quincy Williams has actually been able to thrive in. He also finished last year with a PFF grade of 88.1 and led the NFL in defensive run stops. Just all around a force at linebacker. Now, I always found these numbers interesting, but I kind of broke down his 2 seasons in Jacksonville and his 3 years with the Jets just to show you the growth. And this was a guy that barely played in Jacksonville, didn't look like he was going to do a whole lot. Came to the Jets, you didn't really know what to expect, but 2 seasons in Jacksonville, 18 games played, 59 tackles, no sacks, 1 forced fumble, 1 pass defended. Fast forward 3 years later, and this is his 3 seasons with the Jets. 48 games played, 355 total tackles, 7 sacks, 5 forced fumbles, 16 passes defended. And it's been so fun to watch him come in, grow, get better, and become an all-pro. And by the way, those 355 total tackles since he joined the Jets in 2021 is 15th most in the NFL during that time. So top 15 in tackles over the last 3 years. So I think you've got to expect another huge season out of Quincy Williams. Kind of feels like a little bit the passing of the torch, right? Mosley's here, veteran. Still got a lot of gas left, but will eventually sail off into the sunset, eventually officially pass the torch to Quincy Williams. And then Quincy Williams, hopefully, is a Jet for a very, very long time, even after this current contract, which he will look for a big, big deal after this deal is up. And also, too, just a good locker room guy. And, of course, an awesome story to see him alongside Quinn and his brother having success on one of the league's best defenses. So, Quincy Williams, phenomenal piece, and a big piece at that to this Jets defense. So that is your New York Jets player previews, episode number 15. Let me know in the comments section down below, what are your thoughts and expectations on Breece Hall and Quincy Williams entering 2024. We will have another player preview up on Monday morning. Stay tuned for that. As of now, we only have either 2 to 3 more, depending on some things playing out, some roster things that still need to happen. So stay tuned. We'll have definitely 2 more episodes up with a possible other episode, 1 more episode. So stay tuned. Still got more coming out next week. But until then, as always, JETS, 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 Jets.